48-hour art check, round 74.
Yeah.
And we're back. 48-hour
Yes,
art
we
check.
are, and
Oh
we
my
have
gosh.
a guest.
We do have a guest.
Gotta get my glove on.
That's not that. It's not that type of show, Scott.
You just made me think of Fletch.
Right. Using the whole fist there, Doc. So yeah, let's jump in with an art check. We are gonna do a. Now that we've made those jokes, I'm not going to say what I was about to say. We're going to do a 3-person art check. So I think that'll be good. So I'll start with what I've done if I can push this button. So I got this done. I colored it. It is uploaded to my store, and I think that. It works. It's the first time I've used kind of that system or whatever, so I'm still kind of working at the kinks. But it's possible that you can buy it now at an 18 by 24 poster. So, and it was nice to get the coloring done. I'll talk about it more in the challenges, but thing kicked my butt. So yeah, it was nice to actually do it. But I think it turned out pretty good. I'm not normally happy with what I make, but I like this one, so I think I'm pretty pleased with it.
Yeah, it's all right. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
I was trying to think of a really unimpressed response, like, meh, okay. No, it's super cool. Like the first time you posted that to social media, and I know you posted on all of yours. I don't remember which one I saw it on. I think it was Facebook or something, but I was so impressed because it does show all the work you put in and the gradual kind of patience you've had with it. I think it's a pretty cool piece, you know.
Yeah, I'm glad I did it for Inktober, even though it took me probably twice as long as it should have because I did it for Inktober. But I actually think there's some benefit to taking my time on it. So yeah, it turned out pretty well. I'm happy with it. I can see a lot of the flaws, and I've ordered a very large poster of it, which I'm sure I'm going to see every little, pixel where I just missed the line or something in the coloring, and it's going to drive me nuts. But it is what it is. So yeah, I'm good. How about you, Josh? What did you get done?
All right. Well, so yesterday was the Art Casters and with Scott Strickland, and we talked a lot with my buddy Chris Caligula, and at the same time, we also worked on art. And I always get a ton done, so I ended up getting 2 panels penciled, and I thought that this time, I think I estimated 1. So this is the second art check where I've actually overdone it, which I'm excited about. I hope for more where that happens,
Yeah, that's great.
Not that they're not complicated panels, but still,
Right, but I mean, doing more than you think you were gonna do is always good. So that's cool. How about you, Scott? What have you gotten done in the last couple days?
Okay, I've done a lot, so I'm probably going to go over. Plus, I don't know if I can. Oh, I guess I can see the little thing because now my basically was before my side hustle is my only hustle, so I've got a lot more time. So of course we did the art check. I wrote this down so I can remember because I did so much. So I worked on a sketch for another YouTube video. It's my hero makeover, where I take a drawing I did in the 80s and redesign it. So that'll be my next video, I think next week. And I've been working on this comic creator or comic maker starter kit, which is all the things to get you started making comics. So that includes I've been making halftones and speed lines and brushes and page templates and let's see. So yeah, all that stuff and just formatting that kind of stuff. Let's see. I designed a hoodie that I want to put in my store, and I ordered one of those just as a sample. So I did that, and then I guess that's I had to do like like a font license agreement for the fonts I was doing, so a bunch of boring stuff that, and plus agreements for my downloads, my digital downloads. So I had to write that, and I'm not a lawyer, but I tried to do the best I could because I can't afford to hire a lawyer.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the bulk of the time is just working on this starter kit, this comic creator starter kit that will be available for free if you join my mailing list.
Nice.
So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is quite a bit. You deserve more than 30 seconds for the amount of you get done.
And for anybody watching, like if you haven't gone to Scott's new website yet, you totally should. It's circworks.com, and it's so good. Like it looks so good. It's cool. It's got like a vintagey comic ad kind of vibe to it. The new branding's great. It just like I had glanced at it, you know, because Scott and I do our casters every week, but I think it was yesterday where I really got to like go through everything on it, and I was just really impressed.
And if you guys have any critiques on that at all, you know, let me know, because I'm looking for feedback. Like as far as the big thing for me is because I have digital products and I also have physical products. I created 2 separate stores, so one's under downloads and one's under store. But then I also have a section for tools. So I don't know if you think, because I sell digital tools, so I just don't know how confusing it's going to be if there's a better way to do that. So that's something I'm going to be talking to some people to figure out if I'm doing that right, or I don't know if I should put it all under one store, if that's going to get confusing or what. So yeah, there's still some things I'm kind of futzing around with, but
okay.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it looks good though, man.
And it's scrolling on the screen now for everybody who wants to see a little preview of it, but you can go check out circworks.com because it is pretty awesome. And that's a Squarespace site, which is what I use.
Yeah.
I feel like I feel like this is the part of the podcast where I say, and this episode is brought to you by Squarespace. Go to some affiliate link that I haven't set up yet, but or whatever. But yeah,
I should do that because I think they have an affiliate I don't think you have to. I don't know, one of you guys who were telling me that, but I always thought you had to like be in with
like
somebody at Squarespace, like approach that or them approach you or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think it's just like some of those affiliate things out there where you just say this is sponsored by Squarespace and they give you a link or something.
Yeah, we
like,
thought
I know Audible is that way.
Yeah.
And you can go to, I think it's still active. I don't promote it much, but if you go to audibletrial.com/illotalk, I did it, and there's 2 different tracks. There's like a creator podcaster or whatever track, and there's like a marketing traditional affiliate track, and the other one they just tell you, they're like, we'd like you to say something like this. Don't say that this is an affiliate link. Say, you know, that we're sponsoring your show or whatever. And so that's the way that they wanted you to do it, which I thought was interesting and smart because it sounds better.
Yeah. And I would definitely do one on Squarespace because I believe in it. Whereas like I just yesterday somebody reached out to me from a company that does one of these things where it's like, oh, you could build a logo for $20 and you put in your company name and some different fonts pop up and different images, clip art images. And I was like, and they said, we want you to make a dedicated video for this. What do you charge and everything? And I looked at the product. And I'm like, it's not really, this isn't right for my audience. I mean, they're designers. I mean, this is for people who don't want to invest in their company that don't have any design skills. So basically I told them, the only way I could do it, I said I definitely couldn't do a dedicated video. I said the only way that I could do this, that I could advertise this for you, is if I do a video on, here's some options for branding your company for whatever your budget is, and that would be the bottom, the last resort. If you don't have any money, you're desperate, and you have no design skills, then I said, well, this might be because the logos look nice, but to me, if you're designing, there's more than just looking nice. It has to communicate something, and the person designing it has to understand what the brand is, and and plus with something like that, you're getting the same. I mean, well, not six, I mean, hundreds of other people could have that same logo. I mean, could have that same icon that you have. I mean,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's just, that's not really something that I felt comfortable promoting, even though I do want to start doing more of those kind of videos, because I'm trying to get some other income, but I'm not going to do for something that I don't really believe in. So
I'm
and I think
I'm gonna go after
ahead.
kuretake. That's the brand that's on my radars, because I almost exclusively ink with kuretake, and like,
nice.
yeah,
I'd love to be sponsored by them because I love their products so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to do the Pentel Pocket brush pen, because I swear by that thing. So.
Yeah.
I do like it, but I've started using this one. I think it's a zebra. I don't know, it's because it's in Japanese, but I think this is my new favorite pen. Even though I do like the Kuretake. I have that one too, but I've been using this one for some reason.
Yeah. I've got 5 different types of kuretake pens, and I just can't get enough of them. They're awesome. We should move on with the art check. So we can
sorry, I kind of went in the weeds a little bit there.
No, it's okay. As far as challenges go for me, the biggest challenge is that I've been fighting. So Squarespace has an option to where you can pay extra money every month, and it sets up a store. It's supposed to be pretty slick, but I'm cheap. And so I've been trying to figure out a way to be able to do not that. And so there's a way to incorporate Gumroad and Printful, where Printful will, because they have really good quality, and Scott is the one who mentioned that to me and has vouched for them. And but you can feed Gumroad orders directly into the Printful system, and then I can embed Gumroad products as an embed code into Squarespace, thus bypassing the need to pay extra. And I haven't quite figured everything out. So that's been the challenge, is I'm just trying to do that. And then the other thing is, when I was finishing the color of this thing, it sucked so bad for so long, and it was like literally right at the end when everything got kind of unified and I found kind of the color palette that I wanted. But I mean, it was just garish and awful looking for the last couple days, and I just wasn't feeling it. And finally I got it to where I think it's okay, but oh man, it's just like that was a fight. That was the biggest challenge for me. And then just like normal stuff that I'm not good at, where I try to figure out code because I'm just bad at it. But Josh, what were some of your challenges?
So weirdly enough, like, I haven't been hitting like a ton of challenges. I will say I've been having like other challenges, like Marshall sent me this like video, and it was really cool, and it was just kind of like a bunch of questions, and it's like a private video, but it's just like, just a friendly banter kind of thing. And I've been meaning to send one back to him, and it's literally like a time management thing where I'm finding myself just constantly, that's kind of my big nemesis and my constant struggle, is just like I don't have enough time to do all the stuff I want to do, and just trying to kind of fight the frustration of that and just kind of embracing it. And a lot of this, I think, even the struggles you were talking about with your colors and stuff, will tie into our topic later too, because like there's techniques I use to kind of fight that beast that's like, at least for me, self-critical, when I'm like, running. I'm trying to squeeze everything I can in the very small window of time I have, and it's I know we all, like, I know it's an ununique challenge, and I know it's something we all struggle with, but it's just this was one of those few days where I was just like, man, I just need like 3 extra hours and like 20 times more energy. Maybe if I didn't have to sleep, that would be great.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I feel that a lot. Real quick, where'd my chat button go? Nick says Audible is the logical one because everyone listens to audiobooks when they draw. And I think Audible is a great idea because it will also work on the podcast, because we've just been ripping these directly to the podcast, cutting off the beginning and the end, and I just do a quick synopsis. And so if we're talking about something that makes sense for both video and audio, I think I agree. I think that works.
And by the way, Cory's quick synopsises are so eloquent. Like you really do have a gift for kind of succinctly describing something and queuing it up. It's I envy it, honestly.
Oh, that's funny.
very cool.
I mean, after we talk about it for 40 minutes, I should be able to say it in 45 seconds. But Scott, how about you? What have your challenges been in the last couple of days?
Yeah, so my biggest challenge is this is the first like full week that that I've been, that I haven't had the day job. So, I was all like, well, now I'm gonna have all this time to work on stuff, and it's weird because I'm having trouble finding that kind of groove and whatever works because, before it was like I go to the day job and I know I only have like, 4 to 6 hours after work to like work on my stuff. And so I make the best of that. But now it's kind of like there's all this time, but I'm trying to find a way to, at first, the first couple of days I was like, I don't know if I'm being as productive as I can. So I'm just trying to find that balance and getting back to some sort of, regimen or whatever. Because it's weird because that, like the whole thing started off because I usually go jog in the morning, but now that it's getting dark so early, because I usually wake up at 6, but it's still dark and I don't want to jog when it's still dark, so I've been staying up later and sleeping in a little bit. Or then I was thinking, well, maybe if I get up and I do a sketch and then I go jog. But so far there hasn't been a structure there, so it's just finding that structure is my biggest challenge right now. So I still haven't totally figured that out, but I'm starting to be definitely more productive. So
that's good. I every time a semester ends, I have this problem where my sleep schedule flips and I become nocturnal because of the same thing, except I do it to the extreme because I'm an idiot. So I'll be like, I don't have to get up tomorrow, so I'll stay up till 3. And then the next night it's like I slept in till 11 because I stayed up till 3, and then I stay up till 4, and then I stay up till 6, and then it's like 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, do I go to bed now that it's 8 o'clock in the morning? Or like, what do I do with the situation? And then I have to like, the semester's coming because you only get like a week in between or whatever. I'm like, okay, the semester's starting. So like Friday, I need to go to bed at like 2. And then Saturday, I go to bed at 1. So it's like, so I know what you mean. Like when you don't have like that day job or whatever, there's just this amorphous whatever. And I am not self-disciplined enough to like have like a reasonable adult time frame for the things that I do in my life.
It definitely rings true to me too, because like when I was running my own freelance thing for like quite a few years, like that was my biggest struggle in the world, is that I'm by nature kind of nocturnal, and so I really got in this like regimented schedule, but it was a weird one. Like I would wake up at like 2 p.m. and like check my emails, and then I'd go to bed at like 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And that's not really conducive for like a social life, So, and then like other struggles, like it took me a while to get in a flow where I had a balance, but then it also took a while to kind of get in a flow where I was able to like say, okay, I'm done with work for the day, because there's no clocking out, So like there's this like kind of weird little, thing. The only thing I can say, and I'm sure you're already doing it, is just like the thing that saved me in freelance was just making massive amounts of lists.
Oh yeah, I've got like I use Trello, and it's like I've got all these different tasks and they're all broken up, and it's just like, oh, move that over, that's done, that's, I got to add this, I got to remember to do this.
Yeah.
And then it's like sometimes, because of my ADHD, it's like sometimes I'm like, well, I'll put it like, it's hard for me to stick to something because I'm going to work on this comic maker starter kit for maybe 4 hours, and then I'm going to work on my comic, and then I'm going to work on this. But what I find out is I've been getting into this comic maker starter kit, and I'm like, I just want to get as much of this done, and then I'll move on to the next thing. So it's like just trying to figure out prioritize everything is the biggest thing, So
Nick, Nick Bernstein in the chats had a really good suggestion for you. He said maybe you need a 100 days of freelancing, Scott, while you figure out a structure. That's actually not a bad idea.
Yeah, as long as I don't have to do the videos, because I've already got. That's one thing I want to probably do. Still fitting in those videos, because I'm like, I usually put, if you count the Artcasters every other week, I always put out 2 videos a week.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, maybe I can go to 3, but with all this other stuff, I've got to. I think once I can finish this starter kit thing and get that off my plate, then I can start focusing on the next sort of big project. But it's all trying to get this stuff ready before a lot of this stuff before the end of the year. I mean, the website's up, but it's not totally where I want it to be for kind of, this is sort of a soft launch, where the definite hard launch would be like beginning of the year. And this starter kit is part of that. It's part of the mailing list that goes on the website to drive traffic, all this stuff. So, I mean, it's a lot of these different pieces that are part of that same puzzle. But yeah, I think once I can kind of move that off, then, because the like Young and the Dead issue 4 is all pencil, like you're gonna letter that. So that definitely, I want that done by the first of the year. But I probably will wait to launch the Kickstarter until March, because January and February are horrible to try to sell anything. And I don't want to sell it. I'm just not ready to do it. I don't think it's a good idea to do a Kickstarter around Christmas either. But I do want to focus on selling my other stuff around Christmas. So I don't know. But yeah, it's just trying to find that balance.
Yeah. What you should do is do the Kickstarter, promise to deliver it by Christmas, and then don't. I see that happen a lot.
No, and you just don't deliver?
No, I don't know. It just seems like whenever I've backed, I don't know, over 100 projects, and every single time somebody says, we're going to have this to you by Christmas, I'm like, no, you're not. There's something about the we're going to have it to you by Christmas thing. Even if they're like done in April, they're not going to get it to you by Christmas. Other people get it to you by other dates, but...
I'm really a stickler about that, and I try to get, and I think the last I've only done one Kickstarter, but I said I was going to get it out by this day, and I got it. I think I started getting them out a week before that, because I'd rather under promise and over deliver. That's like a real, and it's not like I understand when people don't deliver, so it's not like I hate it when people do that. But it's just for me, it's just part of, that's part of what my business is based around, is like, is my word is bond, unless it's like, some unforeseen circumstance that I really don't have as much control over. But Scott, barring that,
you're by far like a guy of your word. Like, you always pretty much stick to what you say you're going to do when you're going to do it. And, something that's very admirable, and I think very good for freelance and for design too. Yeah. So, all right. Well, should we get into kind of plans?
Plans. So plans for me, I have no idea. I finished this big project that took me longer than I thought, and now I can't remember what I was going to do. So I'm going to get a couple more products up. I'm going to figure out the Gumroad Squarespace Printful thing, and then I will probably also continue to nail down the secret project that I'm working on that involves some of you guys, which I don't want to say anything about. But yeah, so some random house cleaning stuff that doesn't seem very fun, but I don't know. I too often I've done it. I've done a bunch of these projects, and then I just move on to the next project without trying to promote or sell the thing I just finished. So trying to get out of that habit, even though I almost just want to be like, don't give me money, just have it for free. But I can't, because I can't afford that. So that's my plan, I think, is to get a few more of the things that I've finished up and available for sale for those that want it. Because I've had a ton of people want this poster. Like, this is probably almost sadly been one of the more popular things I've done, and there's a bunch of people that are like, hey, I really want this. And I'm like, seriously, I've been making stuff for 5 years, and this is the first time you want anything? It's like, yeah, okay, cool, well, whatever. So I'll get that up and going. I don't know. What are you gonna do, Josh?
Not a huge surprise. I'm gonna probably try to roughly pencil 2 more panels.
Okay.
If I can get further and exceed that, I'll be happy. But 2 panels would be pretty realistic. And then try to kind of stay focused. I talked about this yesterday on art casters, but that's another challenge just to fill these 6 seconds. I am, trying to stay focused on the prize and getting it completed instead of thinking too far ahead. Because at this point, I really need to just get it done. So,
yeah. Scott, what are you going to do in the next couple days?
Okay, yeah. So the still working on this starter kit. So I got most of. I think I'm kind of in the home stretch as far as all the pieces, all the actual elements that are actually in the kit. But beyond that, I got to create instructions. I got to create some product shots of what it looks like. Advertising and things like that. So also I was talking about that hero makeover thing that I did. I've got to actually film the video and do the voiceover for that. I want to go back. I've got like a lot of I was doing a series called Mad Genius Hall of Fame where it was kind of like a sort of fan art stuff, but they're all like mad scientists and stuff. So I got a lot of those filmed, but those kind of took a long time because it was more like a kind of a history lesson of the character. So I may try to change that around a little bit where I just talk of my love of the character without giving so many facts and things, because it takes a long time to do that. But so I might do one of those videos as well. And as far as, again, with the starter kit, the other thing is I've got to export all these different files in different formats. So you'll have your vector file, you'll have an AI file, a PSD file, a PNG file, and a PDF file probably for most of these different, parts of this particular, download. So yeah, I got to do all that. So yeah, it's mostly the starter kit is the main thing, but then YouTube videos and some other stuff.
Nice.
Cool. Okay. Real quick, I have to go turn my heater off because this is the part that's going to go into the audio and it keeps kicking in. But Josh and Scott, that'll just take me a couple seconds. But do you guys want to kick off the topic while I'm doing that?
Sure.
Yeah, Josh, because I forgot who it was.
Okay, so this has just been on my mind lately because I remember kind of when I was an early illustrator and designer, struggling kind of finding a balance, and getting really freaked out about deadlines, and kind of it taking a while to kind of find this sort of like Zen thing that you kind of get, where it's sort of like, so I guess what I'm getting at is when you're an artist and when you're especially a commercial artist and you're doing that for a living, there tends to be pressure involved because there's always usually a deadline, and so there's pressure, and there's a lot of kind of techniques and stuff to dealing with pressure, ways to kind of break down problems into simpler solutions that kind of help with different pressure, but the artist life, even half of most of graphic design is just problem solving, and that in itself is kind of taking pressure and kind of depressurizing it. And it's a weird thing, but it's I feel like it's an ability that most people, I think, who've been seasoned in the field have kind of developed, but it's definitely, I don't know if it's our natural default state to kind of not bow to pressure, or not basically cave when pressure hits. So I guess what I was I thought would be a good topic, and I thought I think we'd all have kind of probably current stories and stuff related to that, is just how do you guys deal with pressure, deadline pressure, finding clients pressure, you know, just how do you deal with generally the kind of pressure that comes with being an artist? And by the way, to kind of preface this too, um, I don't want to give the impression that I'm saying like art is so terrible and it's so full of pressure, because what we do for a living is super fun. But there is pressure. So, so what I'm getting at is just kind of like, how do you guys deal with the pressure? What do you guys do to kind of coach people who maybe are newer to the field? Because I think we've all mentored people, and stuff that are kind of newer to it and are going to kind of feel that pressure like way heavier. You know, I don't know. I just thought it'd be an interesting topic. So,
yeah, it is an interesting topic. I feel like, Josh, this might be one that could go for 3 or 4 episodes as well.
For sure.
So what if each of us talks about advice we would give people to starting out on this episode, and then we can kind of move into something on the next episode, because otherwise I think it's going to be like an hour-long plus thing.
For sure.
Okay, so I'll start when I am lecturing on this topic, because it's part of a creative life that you are going to have to deal with. 2 things. One is burnout, and the other one is just, you know, like performing creative practices under pressure is actually really hard. So a lot of what I'll say is basically you need to, as fast as you can, get a couple projects under your belt and completed, because what that does is intellectually you can understand that you can withstand stuff, but until you experientially understand it, it's not in your gut, and in your gut is how you beat the mental stuff. And so like I have a project, I have this one class, and it's probably one of the hardest classes that people take. It's this class on vector graphics. And there's a project that I specifically put in there because it is so hard. It seems impossible, but it's actually just time consuming once you learn like how to do it. It's skeuomorphic design. It's making a photorealistic illustration in Adobe Illustrator of like a watch. And these students who have never touched Adobe Illustrator before and now have about 4 weeks of experience take 2 weeks and do this, and it is amazing what they're able to accomplish. And the cool thing about it is they are amazed at what they're able to accomplish. And then I just tie it back and I say, now that you've done that, you now understand that all it takes is knowing how to figure things out and work. If you know how to figure things out and you're willing to put in the work, there's literally nothing that can stop you from doing anything, and you know that in your gut. That will oftentimes not necessarily alleviate the pressure, but help categorize the pressure as something that can be accomplished. So if it's like, if I've never had that experience and I've got tons of pressure, that pressure is terrifying because it could kill me. I could die. I could never finish this thing. I don't know, right? There's just like intellectually you have this battle, but if you knock out like a skeuomorphic design, or you knock out like a mini comic, or you knock out like a series of videos, or you knock out 100 Days of Making Comics, or a sticker stint, or something like that, those are really, really hard. But also, all it takes is time and effort. And if you can do that, at the end of that, you're like, yeah, I can do that. And you know that in your gut. I feel like that's one of the main components that can help a beginner out of that pressure is just knowing that it's possible.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think, Scott?
So the topic is, I mean, this part of this topic is that advice for,
like, what would you tell somebody just starting out into a creative life, whether that be writing or videography or illustration or whatever, on how to deal with, mitigate, handle the pressure and the possible burnout?
Yeah, that's kind of a tough one, because like I mean this topic really relates to me right now, because like I said before, is that I have this huge transition where I'm going from, you know, being full-time employed with that side hustle to that side hustle being the main thing. And for somebody starting out, I mean, it seems like in a lot of ways I'm so far removed for that. I mean, I am sort of starting out, but I feel like I've got a head start because I already started building this. It's nowhere where it needs to be in order to make it sustainable, to make up for all that. But I guess, you know, I guess the one thing I would say, I guess, is to sort of rely on your strengths, because that's kind of what I'm trying to do right now, because there are certain things that have worked for me in the past that I'm trying to focus more on that, you know, not basically that, I don't know if this equates to like that 80-20 rule where, you know, you kind of don't concentrate on that is it the 80% that's not working, but the 20% that does.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that I was sort of planning on doing, but I'm like, I don't know if I can build a business off of that right now. I mean, that's stuff that, like, for instance, my comic, I'm still going to finish it, everything, but I don't have any delusions that that's going to be a big money maker. Now, when I get to the Kickstarter, I'll probably earn some money there, hopefully. But I really think that, you know, my biggest thing is I've got to build that audience. I think the best way for me to build that audience, I mean, I could crash and burn with this, I don't know, but I really think that if I'm able to offer everyone something that they want, that I know they want, because they're on, you know, if they're following me, they're probably comic book creators. So I'm creating this kit right now, and it's just there's so much value in it. I mean, I could sell this thing for a pretty decent chunk, and I will probably make another version for sale that's a lot bigger. But even with this basic model, I mean, just the fonts alone is worth it, or it's worth signing up for a mailing list and getting for free. And there's so much more to it. So I'm just hoping that this is really going to, you know, have an impact. Yeah. You know, so yeah. I guess what can you do that can have the biggest impact, I guess. Something
that you mentioned that I really like, that I heard Chris Oatley say. Chris Oatley of the Paper Wings podcast and the Oatley Academy used to be a character designer at Disney, and I know you guys know this, but just for everybody else. And he was saying, as he was transitioning out, that he was really glad that he spent the time while he was working, side hustling, you know, and building up an audience. And what you've done is exactly the right thing. You didn't know when this was coming or if it was coming until kind of right at the end. But I think all of us with a day job should, or anybody in any situation, should be creating constantly and trying to add value to people's lives and gather kind of a tribe, you know, because you never know when you're going to have to transition into something like that. And if you hadn't done that and today was the first day that you're starting, you'd be years behind. Whereas you're at the you're on the cliff. That's the word. Yeah. You're at the edge right now, and you never know when it's gonna tip over and the key's gonna turn and it's gonna work for you. And it could be, you know, it could be next week, you know. But it definitely wouldn't be next week if you started today. It's because you started years ago and have been working on it consistently forever. So I think that's great too.
Yeah, and I think how it relates to somebody, if you're just kind of starting off, whatever you're doing, that hopefully, you know, you're in a position, like if you want to make a go at, say, doing art full time or whatever, you know, if you do have a full-time job or whatever, you know, do what I'm doing, and maybe you can get further along than I am, or maybe you can't, but you got to start. Like, you just did a video on this today, and I would recommend anyone watch the video that Cory put out on his YouTube channel today about personal projects. But there's not a perfect time to start. You mentioned that. You start today, and because and it's a long haul. I mean, I've been trying to build this whole thing, and it's growing, but it's nowhere where it needs to be. But if I didn't start to begin with, I wouldn't be where I am now. And I don't anticipate it not growing more. It will grow. It may take more time. I may hit some kind of stride or something that just boosts it. Maybe this is the thing. You hear all those stories about people who I was down. I mean, every success story, like, I was down and out. I was down to my last dollar, and then I did this and it hit. And I've never had anything hit like that, but I've had so many things that that had the potential. So, and this might be the thing, but it's not. And even if it doesn't hit, I know it's going to make some sort of impact. It may not, you know, blow up or whatever, but it's going to be something that's going to add, because I've got all these little things that I've done that can earn a little money here and there, and the more I put out there. And that's another thing, is like, don't put all your eggs in one basket, especially like with your day job. I was just watching a video, the movie reviewer, Chris Stuckman. I don't know if you watch any of his stuff, but he was with some kind of one of these, I don't know what I forgot what the multi-channel networks or something like that, that just basically closed their doors, didn't warn anybody, and took a bunch of people's money. And it sounded kind of like, I mean, he sounded like he had some savings and stuff, but this guy's a huge YouTuber. I mean, but he was talking about some of these other people that were also huge YouTubers that this just devastated him. And I'm like, oh man, I mean, that if you have that audience, why aren't you selling something other than just trying to make money off of just AdSense? Because that could go away so quickly. I mean, if everything you have is just in one thing, I mean, these, like I said, these are people that are making a lot of money from YouTube AdSense. If they're not taking that audience and also doing stuff on the side, I mean, I do feel sorry for them, but in some ways I'm like, I mean, that's just not smart. I mean, you have the potential to take that fame and that recognizability and parlay it into all these other things, so you're not just concentrating on like one thing, because that could easily go away, whether it's a full-time job, whether it's if you're freelancing, you have like one client, because I'm kind of in that situation now where I have one client, but if that goes away, then, you know, then I'm really in trouble, you know. And I'm trying to find more clients, you know, but eventually I don't want to do the client stuff so much. I want to do, you know, I want to do the stuff that I like. I want to sell my own stuff, but so right now it's just kind of I'm putting all these things out there. I've sent some stuff out, you know, applied for some full-time positions, and you know, I'm not like just waiting by the phone that they'll call me, because if they don't call me, fine. I mean, I'll, you know, I mean, that's okay for me, because I want to build my own thing. But if they do, then I have to make that decision. Is that going to work with what I'm trying to do? So you know, I'm trying different things, and I'm trying to be smart about what I do, because I'm not going to waste my time with something that doesn't have any potential at all. But I am going to invest my time in, maybe this, I can put a little attention here, a little attention there, and maybe all these things collectively can, you know, can earn an income and make it so I can continue to do what I love to do.
Yeah, and I think that ties into the pressure thing too, because it's like one of the things I'm kind of getting out of what you're talking about that is helping with the, you know, the pressure of kind of just like a total change like that. Like change causes pressure, you know, even if you're like a person who handles pressure well, and what you're doing is being active and not passive. And that's a huge thing too, because one of the things that makes people feel pressure is a lack of action. And so it's like, you know, like you can freeze up and panic and get nowhere, or you can move and tread water and swim, and then you get somewhere. And it's the weirdest thing, you know. And a lot of it's just having faith that you'll get somewhere, you know. And you know, like you've laid groundwork, so it's not blind faith. Like you know where you're kind of heading, you know what the possibilities are. And I think that's a really solid approach to kind of handling pressure too, that I think is kind of seasoned. Like, meaning I don't know if that's how most people react at first, with stuff. And I don't know, I just thought that was kind of cool, the idea of like active versus passive reaction to it, you know.
Yeah, and I've had days where I was like that, where it's like I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. What do I do? I'm in trouble here. And then that's, you know, then I'm like, well, I've got all this stuff I got to do, so I might as well just focus on that, you know, and some things rather. But yeah, I mean, it's there'll be days like, and I've got, you know, like I said, I've got some freelance, I've got, you know, little bits of income here and there, and I've got some savings, not a lot. So I mean, I have some sort of a window. So, but if none of these things happen, then I'm going to be in trouble, and then I'm going to have to reevaluate. But there have been days where, or not, maybe not a whole day, but like there are times like throughout the day where like, oh man, I don't, I wonder, I don't know what I'm going to do, so, but yeah, I mean, so it's a little bit of both, but I have kind of, I've been through this so many times before that the more experience you have, like, because every art job I've ever had, save one, that I quit because it was horrible, I've been laid off from. So, so I'm used to it. And I never, like I said, I never take for granted that, oh, this is, I have job security. There's no such thing as that.
Yeah, for sure.
So every day when I worked that job, I thought, oh, I can go in today and be laid off. And eventually it did happen. So.
Yeah, and that is actually a really important thing, kind of reinforcing what you were saying, Cory was saying, and about the fact that like there really isn't, like, the idea of job security is an illusion. So,
right.
And I used to say that to people when, people used to be weirded out when I ran my own business for like, over 10 years. And it's like, I was like 10 years in and people would be like, but how do you pay for health insurance? And I was like, I just buy it. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, like, what do you do for dental? You pay for it?
Right.
Oh, well, like, but I like my job provides that. It's like, no, it doesn't. That's part of your salary, dude. Like, that's part of your money. Oh, it doesn't come out of my salary. Well, then they're not paying you that amount, but they're paying you that amount. Like,
I worked for a company that at the end of each year would show you a sheet that said, this is how much we're paying you, and here's the monetary value of everything else that you're getting. It was a really weird conversation, but I also think it opened a lot of people's eyes, like, oh, I'm actually getting a lot more value out of this company than I thought I was.
No, and like, I'll say, coming from freelance, man, like, when I got into like an office, it was just like it was like night and day, where I was like, wait, they just pay you vacation time? Like, there was stuff like that like are these entitlements that are just expected and built into the workforce that do not exist when you're running your own business, and you have to kind of plan in.
Yeah.
But the point is, like, 10 years in, people would be like, what do you do about vacation? Well, I just take a day off and put an out of office message. What? Like, like, people would just be so weirded out. And it's like, dude, it's as secure as your job. Like,
yeah. And
that's what I would say, because like your job relies on clients just like a freelancer relies on clients. What happens if all those clients disappear?
Right.
Like, it's the same thing that happens when you're freelance and all the clients disappear. So
I was just going to say, the difference is, if it's your company, you're responsible. Whereas like the company I was at before, I have no say in how they market it or how they, I can only do the best I can at my job. But if other people aren't doing the best they can at their job and it's not working, then you don't have any control. At least if your business is failing, you're running it, you're to blame, and you can make course corrections and things like that. So
for sure,
so in some ways there's more security because you have more control over it.
Yeah,
it's kind of like it's hard to think of it that way. But
I think you're pinning it down though, and I think that's the thing that makes people freaked out about being self-employed, is like the idea that like you literally have no boss to blame. Like when you're running your own ship, like you are literally the master of your own destiny, and if your destiny doesn't work out, it's your fault. And it's a tough thing. That's a hard thing for people, and I think that's the thing. I think that's one of the core things that freaks people out about it. But I did it successfully for a long time. I got burnt out on it. I've gone into that over and over again, why I kind of like, I personally kind of prefer a full-time gig, although I have so many times where I am like, I do kind of miss that life, So, but I do think just everything you're saying is like really valuable, I think, for people who might be like freaked out about making the jump to freelance, or maybe are in a similar position. For me, I think the pressure that I kind of want to advise people on, because you guys hit everything pretty well, and the student pressure, that was really great advice, actually, because a lot of it's just doing it. I see a lot of like younger designers or artists like freak out about deadlines quite frequently.
Yeah.
And or like workload, like if the workload gets kind of chaotic and there's a lot of plates to juggle, like most people are okay when you hand them a plate, but if you hand them 5 plates, they're they're looking at the 5 and freaking out.
Right.
And so it does kind of tie back to like almost like the 80-20 rule. But the way I usually like to phrase it, and it's kind of a weird way, but I think that whenever you're looking at a problem, and that's all that is a problem. Like, I have 5 plates. The 1 plate's a problem, the 5 plates are a problem.
Yeah.
Anytime you face a problem, your instant reaction is usually fight or flight. So you want to either pass it off. I mean, this is just like mind instinct. I guess psychology is, it's just like the human instinct when faced with conflict wants to fight or flight. So that, you want to pass the buck.
Everybody always forgets the third one, freeze.
Yes.
So there's three. There's freezing, there's fighting, and there's running.
That's totally true. So you pass the buck, which is kind of running or passing the buck. Like you want to pass the plates to somebody else. Here, you hold these. Or you get angry and you break the plates, or you just freeze holding the plates, and nothing happens. And the point being, I'm just using plates as a metaphor of like juggling, but the point is just. When you're facing a problem, like a giant problem, one of the best things to do is to look at it, assess it, and break it into segments.
Yeah.
Because and don't try to attack all the segments at once, because that's going to lead to freezing, fighting, or running. Because like at some point, if you're trying to tackle 20 things at once, you will literally you'll have a mental breakdown, because we're not made to multitask as human beings. There are so many people who say, I'm great at multitasking. It's a good thing to say in a job interview. Yeah, I'm really good at multitasking, but no one is good at multitasking.
And if you are a guy, genetically it's impossible. Women have the neurological ability to multitask because they have a corpus callosum that's significantly larger than men. Men literally don't have the neurological ability to hold 2 different thoughts in their mind at the same time.
Exactly. So what I recommend, and this is even like they've done studies on multitasking, even with people who are supposedly good at multitasking, and what usually results from multitasking is more frequent errors.
Right.
So like, what do you do when you're in a position where you have to multitask, which is art and illustration and design? Like, you have to do a lot of multitasking. Scott is heading into multitasking, a huge amount, because of the fact that like now you have to find clients, you have to maintain clients, you have to fulfill requests for clients, you are trying to build a brand, and I could keep going on, and the list just keeps growing, and it literally won't shrink. So if you tried to attack all of those things at once, it would cause it just would cause disaster. So instead, Josh, what I always recommend,
I think it's really important to differentiate having a lot of different things to do in a time period and actual multitasking, because
exactly.
And I know you understand this, but just for those people listening, there is a specific difference, and it's a really important difference. You can spend your day doing a lot of different things, and even having to switch neurological modality from a creative to an analytical to a logical to a nonlinear or whatever throughout the day. But multitasking is actually trying to, in the same time period, do more than one thing at the same time. And what happens with that is what Josh is talking about, where you start to make mistakes and whatever. And I think where you're going, I'll let you go there, but I just wanted to make sure that you can switch tasks.
Draw that line, yes.
But that's different, having a bunch of different things to do, than actual multitasking, which is trying to do those things at the same time.
Yeah, and so like a lot of people, like, there is this misconception that you can successfully multitask, and there's so much science behind the fact that you can't. The kind of that he just defined. So instead of trying to multitask, I always recommend people do what I call microtasking, which is basically you take a massive task or a massive group of tasks, and you break it into little feasible goals. So with my graphic novel, a perfect example, if I tried to, like, even right now, as far as I'm into it, if I start thinking about too much about the quantity of pages, I am tempted to give up, to tear up the pages, or to like flight, fight, or
Right.
freeze.
Yeah.
And literally because it's overwhelming. It actually in my brain is still impossible to do, and yet I'm really close to finishing it.
Yeah.
And and this is why things like the 100 Days of Making Comics are great. And I'll tie that in at the end. And I want to let Cory chime in too, because I'm sure he's probably in agreement with this, because I think we all use this. But anyhow, I recommend like taking the giant problem, breaking it down into small feasible chunks that are areas where you can actually significantly stop, categorize it somewhere else, and switch modalities like Cory was talking about. So I'm doing something analytical. I get to a point that feels like a good stop, like it's a marker in the race, and I switch racetracks. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that way you're allowed to, it's like you're mentally tricking yourself to be able to give full focus to every little thing you're doing, to the point where there are less errors, there's more concentration, and you're able to kind of engage the creative mind. Because this is really one of the most difficult things about being a creative under the gun, which is a paid creative, because there's always deadlines. And the tough thing is, how do you force creativity? And the problem is you need space to be creative, but you also need to hit deadlines. And that's the big juggle of being a professional artist. And that's it, like students struggle with it. People who've been at it for a long time struggle with it. And this is literally one of the only tricks I've seen that just effectively works, where you have to kind of break things into reasonable chunks. So it's like you almost want to look at it like you're being asked to eat an entire cow. Like, or, you know, if you're a vegetarian, you're being asked to eat like a giant, I don't know, what's a big
an entire row of vegetables in a field.
Yeah.
What is a jackfruit? A whole jackfruit?
Yeah. So, I mean, what are you going to do that? Like, you know, if you look at professional eaters who have to eat like 1 million hot dogs, they have little tricks.
Right.
Like they're dipping the hot dog in water so that the bread kind of gets smaller.
That always reminds me of The Office. When they have
totally.
Let it slide down your gullet.
But I mean, like there have to be like these developed techniques to be able to take things in small chunks, because if you try to attack the entire thing, you're going to choke to death and you're going to freak out. And like, and one of the worst things you can do in a professional environment, or let's say you're running your own business, like the last thing you want to do is blow that deadline with that core client that you, like, your business is built on client relationships with a freelance business. So like the last thing you want to do is burn those core clients that could be those base clients that are like the foundation you build your whole thing off of.
Yeah.
So, and by clients, I'm also talking about like for creator owned stuff. Like that doesn't just mean like, you know, like Miller Lite called me and I really need to do a good job on this and hit the deadline so that I can build a relationship with a giant customer. That would be a good win if you're aiming for that. But this could also be for like, I need to deliver this product on time to my customer, or like Scott was talking about, like that reliability that he's kind of built into his own ethic, where like if he does a Kickstarter and says it'll be by Christmas, it will be by Christmas.
Right.
Like that kind of thing is going to gain a following that's more loyal to you. But like, once again, if you tried to do everything in a Kickstarter campaign without breaking it down into like reasonable, pausable things, you'll freak out and probably never run a Kickstarter. You know, like,
yeah,
it's just one of those things that and I know it's obvious and to a lot of people, but I'm amazed at how many people don't put it into practice. And then when you do, it gives you this weird calm amid a storm, because then when you're handed like 20 plates, you're like, well, okay, it's time to start breaking these into little chunks and figuring out how we're going to do this.
Right.
Instead of being like, oh my gosh, it's 20 plates because you're looking at the whole, you know? So in a weird way, it's like you almost want to look at the trees and not the forest.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing.
I think this is something I pointed out in class the other day. DKNG puts out a lot of speed videos and time-lapse videos of their work. And one thing that I see them do that I think is a skill that people miss is it's almost hard to watch their time-lapse videos because they zoom in and out constantly. And it's really interesting because they'll zoom in, they'll do some detail work, they'll zoom out to check to see how that looks, and then they zoom in to do some detail work. And I think that, that old saying that you can't see the forest for the trees, meaning you're so focused on the trees that you're missing the forest, or you're so focused on the little tasks that you're missing the big picture, can definitely happen. And the inverse can happen. You can't see the trees for the forest, if you're only focused on the big picture and you freak out, you run, or you try to burn the forest down or something. I was trying to think of what fighting a forest would be like, but yeah. So there's that idea of having kind of both of those in mind. I gave myself some notes, but I think one thing on that kind of, did you call that microtasking?
Yeah.
Is to be aware of something. They've done studies. There is a task switching penalty. I have to say that slowly because I can't say it fast. But there's a task switching penalty to where if you switch modality in your head, right? You go from a creative to an analytical or something like that. It takes the average person roughly 18 minutes to become productive. So if you're productive and you switch tasks to something that causes your brain to be different, there's a ramping up time. But if you're in a specific way of thinking, you can do a number of tasks as long as you don't switch that way of thinking and continue that momentum. So yeah. the way that people will describe this in a cartooning sense is like, if you're working on 3 pages at the same time, which some people do and some people don't, I prefer it that way, and you do all the thumbnails in one batch, and then you do all the pencils in one batch, and then you do all the, whatever. I don't recommend that for like a 40-page book, but like 2 or 3 pages at a time, or 2 or 3 panels at a time. What that does is you avoid or lessen that task switching penalty. So I actually think that might be like a whole topic. And then the other thing that I was thinking of while you were talking, and I've actually made 2 or 3 videos in the last couple months about this topic, because I've noticed that what I assumed was a natural way of thinking is actually weird and way more mature. And I don't mean like mature, immature. I just mean like time, long tooth, time and experience, is just back planning, what I call back planning, which is what Josh is talking about here. You're saying, you have this giant goal at the end and it's huge and it's daunting and whatever. And instead of looking at that, you say, okay, how do I need to get there? All right, well, just before that, this has to happen. And before that thing, I've got to be able to do this. And before I can do that, these 3 things have to happen. And where am I right now? I'm right here. So what's in between that and this? All of a sudden, what you've done is you've started at the end, reverse engineered all of the steps that you needed to do, and then you just move forward and you do the one that's closest to you. To me, that seems so obvious that for actually up until like this last 6 weeks, I've spent like 4 years around college students, so they're 18 to 24 years old, and I'm like, why is it that every time I give you guys something, you freeze? And it's because the way that I teach, I give them exceptionally high expectations in a very ambiguous environment with very little direction, because that's kind of how industry is. Whether you're working for someone or for yourself, no one comes to you and says, in either situation, here's the clear path that you need to take to accomplish this thing. And I want you to check in with me on each of these stages on these dates. That rarely happens, and if it happens, those are big milestones that they want you to check in. You still have to chunk it down. What typically happens in most situations is they say, hey, we need this thing. And then they don't talk to you until you tell them hey, I need to touch base with you or whatever. They might say, hey, how's that going? But like, it's on you as a creator to back plan and break that up into tiny little chunks and say, okay, here's the big giant goal, and here's me with nothing. How do I get from nothing to big giant goal? Step by step. What are those steps? Well, let's start a big giant goal and reverse, and then figure out where I am and what do I need to accomplish. And then all you do is, instead of having this huge obstacle in front of you, you have, well, I just need to build the next step in the staircase. How do I do that? Well, it looks like I've got these tools and these opportunities, so I do that. Okay, I've taken that step. What's next? And then you just continue heading in that direction, and that's it.
I can't help but think of like that, and I don't watch boxing a lot, but I watched that Mayweather match where he fought the UFC dude.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's a really good example, weirdly enough, of like a good tactic for accomplishing a very hard task. Even though I don't think Mayweather was like breaking much of a sweat in that, because it was his sport, you know?
Yeah.
But the point being, if you watch this boxing match, you're watching somebody make every move very tactically because they knew that the person who was boxing them was going to wear themselves out by a certain round.
Right.
And so every step was methodical to wear the giant down so that you could knock them out.
Right.
And this is like a boxing technique that's been used for years. Mayweather's really famous for it because that's kind of his thing. That's why a lot of people don't even like watching his fights, because he's really tactical.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is he's effective. And if you are tactical with your fight, which is art, and you kind of wear it down, it's not such a giant. And it also, that back planning thing that Cory just touched on is huge for freelance. If you can't do that, you are going to blow your quotes to clients. You are going to promise the impossible, and then you're going to under-deliver, and you're going to blow your reputation. If you can learn to do that, you can have a conversation, very wisely say, I will get back to you with a quote, instead of just throw it out there. Do the math of like each point you have to hit and what date or time you'd have to hit it to accomplish what they're asking. And then you can come back with, if it's a real stretch, but it's doable, then you come back with a rush fee. If it's it's doable and it's pretty reasonable, you come back with a fair fee. And if it's impossible, you come back with, this is what I can give you, because I literally cannot deliver what you're asking.
Yeah.
And that's a much better thing. It's much better to do your Kickstarter and say, I can't promise Christmas. I'm aiming for this. Most likely it will be around here. And you've back planned it, so you know.
Yeah.
Like that's a much better place to be and a much better position to be. But it is a tactical thing. And that is that weird kind of switching from the trees to the forest. And it is hard to do, because when you start, you very much are in the trees. Most of your early jobs will be asking you to look at the trees.
Right.
And then, there's people in higher positions who have to do that navigation. Switching modalities, though, I don't know if this is true psychologically. I know for myself, that threw me for my first probably 2 years as an art director, because that is the job. Right. Like the job is, you're fixing designs, you're thinking about color, you're thinking about that. At the same time, you're thinking about political stuff, and political, not dirty political, like what's the morale like in the room? Mm-hmm. Like, how do people feel? Like, are people content where they are? That's going on. You're having to think on like 50 different levels. And I think that's why, like, when I went into art direction, one of my older art directors at an education place I worked for, I emailed him because I was like panicked. I was like, I've never done this before. What's your advice? And he was like, just try to do the best for your team.
Yeah. And
enjoy the gray hair. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, in like the first year you're going to start getting gray hair. And I did. I literally did. Like, that was the first year where my hair started graying. And it was literally from stress. I mean, it's like a crazy job. And what's weird is, from going through that and having to get through that 15 minutes of just like, what? Wait, I have to switch. This is after a while you get really comfortable with it, and then like that 15 minutes, at least for me, seems to shorten, where it's like I can switch gears much more effectively, and also I can respond to like fires, like huge things that would freak most people out at a job, with just like, okay, well, what are we going to do? Like, you just put what you're doing on pause and you handle the fire. And it's this weird thing that, like, once you've seen behind the curtain of it, it's a little weird. And it makes me really sympathetic to, like, bosses I had that I wasn't nice to. Like, but it's fascinating, and it's a skill. And I feel really blessed to have that skill and be developing it, because it does translate to when I get home and I have that, like, I'm putting my son to bed, I'm trying to be a dedicated dad, and like I'm trying to, like, you know, like play games with him and stuff like that. And then I'm switching, like the second he's asleep, I'm like, I have to hit comics as hard as I can for the next, you know, whatever window I have till something else or till I have to sleep. And I don't have time to like feel weird and warm up. Like, I don't have time for that.
Right.
But the beauty is, because of what I'm doing all the time at work, I'm able to, like, when I'm at my art desk, I start. Like, I don't have like a massive like warm up moment or like a 15 minutes where I have to get in the zone. I just am in the zone, because and anyhow, this is going to veer off onto like way bigger topics. But
you're saying that you spent a couple years getting to that point, right?
Yes, and most of it's habit building.
So that makes sense to me. This might be something that sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Because there's a term called neuroplasticity, which is the concept that you can actually rewire your brain to do specific things. And the neurologists say neurons that wire together fire together, meaning that we actually groove routes. Just like if you were to trailblaze something and then a bunch of people followed you and then a tractor followed you and then it became a road and then it became a freeway. Like, that freeway is much more effective means of travel than you trailblazing, but it's because it was traveled a lot, and that happens in your brain too. And so neuroplasticity is the term that you just described, where it's like you started out just like everybody had the task switching penalty, and it was hard and stressful, and then because you continued to do it and continued to optimize that process, it became faster and faster and faster until now it's like second nature to you. It's because your brain has adapted to your environment, and so that's definitely a thing. I've got to wrap this up in a couple minutes because I've got to get to something. But I've taken some notes. Task switching, something that came up that I think would be an interesting topic: sitting with people's anger instead of reacting to it. And I think we've got a lot more to say on pressure. I think we could do a really interesting series on back planning. I'd love to hear Scott's techniques on how he handles things, how you do it at art direction and in clients. And I think the three of us could kind of tackle an interesting back planning conversation. Like, very kind
100%.
of rubber hits the road. I think that would be really good.
Yeah. I also wanted to say, if you guys are like currently like, you know, watching the YouTube thing, subscribe to us on iTunes. We are available on iTunes now, which is like this crazy awesome thing. And like you can hear Cory's eloquent introductions. They're really good. Like, I'm really, like, I sincerely am super impressed by them. And like every time I hear it, I'm like, that makes us sound so like official and cool. But yeah, so like check that out on iTunes, and you just search for 48-hour art check, and if you can, like, leave us a 4-star rating or like a review in iTunes. That helps us like rank in the little top podcast chart, which would be really cool. Like, and I've seen it happen before, and I think it would be fun to have our community represented there. And then, like, I also wanted to thank everybody in the chats, because it's been really cool. And especially, I mean, I don't want to like say, you know, but I feel like Nick was really on point with a lot of his contributions and stuff. So thanks, man, for contributing, and everybody who showed up in the chats. It's just always cool to see that community and stuff. Thanks, Scott, for coming on, man.
Yeah, it was awesome, and hopefully I can be back. So when's the next? Would it be like a Monday, or I'm trying to figure out if I'm available.
Yeah, it'll be Monday. Monday we've got. I will say this for those watching live. Monday we've got Stephen Henderson who's going to come on. But Scott, you're welcome to join us for that conversation. We'll be following up.
I mean, 4 might be a crowd, so maybe if you're going to continue what we're talking about now, whatever that.
So that would be Wednesday or Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So we could probably do that.
So for those of you watching, we talked about this the last episode and the episode before that, but we have Stephen Henderson scheduled. And so if you recall, that's the conversation that Josh and I had with my coworker who is a journalist and a writer. And at the time that we had that conversation, he had a number of first drafts of first chapters of novels that he wanted to write done, but he'd never gotten to the second chapter. And I've checked in with him a couple times this week, and he's actually really excited to come on and talk to us. He's sent me some stuff. He's been writing. He's done a lot of the things that we talked about there. I think that was kind of like he was going to do that anyway, but having that conversation with us was kind of a catalyst that kind of sped that up. And that was
so exciting.
It was really cool because the way that guy thinks and his ability to articulate, the world needs his books. I'm really excited about it. And he always, whenever I say stuff like that, he always gets uncomfortable, but I just love the way he thinks and the way he processes and stuff. And so it was funny though, because I was pitching him the idea that I have for my story for the anthology in the 100 Days of Making Comics. And he was just cracking up because mine's all like weird with mythological creatures, and I'm mixing like old folklore with Moby Dick and like the history of whaling. And he was just laughing because it's so weird, because his style is very like slice of life, like dive deep into a small moment and kind of really experience it and everything. And I've got like monsters and aliens and it's just kind of like, but it's interesting because we both have a very similar passion for what it is we do, and we just attack it from a very different way. Anyway, so that's going to be on Monday at 9 p.m. Pacific time. We'd love to have people in the chat for that. So we'll kind of plan that ahead of time. That will also be in the podcast after the fact. But if you haven't listened to that episode yet, go to corykerr.com/48hr, and you'll see it down there at the bottom. It's an episode. I think it was over an hour for the video. The podcast portion is about 40 minutes. And it's one of the better.
It's one of our best ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is one of the better episodes. So, Scott, I feel like I talked a lot, and I wanted to hear more from you. Sorry, I didn't.
No, I think there was definitely some times where I thought I talked too much. So
yeah,
I think it was a pretty good balance.
Well, I don't know how the rest of tonight is going. I have some stuff I need to do for the next little while. We might have a bonus round, so stay tuned either to me or Josh or Scott's channel, and you might see one of us go live with the three of us again. We'll see how the rest of this night goes. Not promising anything, but I just gotta do some quick errands, and then we might come back on. In the meantime, you can check out Scott's stuff at let me pull up his website. You can check out Scott's stuff at circworks.com. Brand new website. There he is in his green lab coat and all his cool stuff. Go check that out, and check out the store. I mean, Scott has some of the best posters that I've ever seen that involve creativity, and it's stuff that really hits home to like the motivation and movement and thinking and creating, and I just love the humor and the retro vibe too, and the texture, the colors, and the illustration, everything is amazing. And so get yourself a poster or a T-shirt or or whatever in Scott's site. I'd really recommend that. And now is a great time for that, as he's transitioning from day job to freelance. So if you've been on the fence, or if you haven't thought about it, go get something, because it's great stuff. And then if you want to see Josh's stuff, you can go to quarterlystories.com, and the best thing that you can do for Josh right now is get on tapas.io.
Tapas, I don't know. Yeah.
Tapas, I don't know. Is it T-O-P?
T-A-P.
T-A-P. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Wait. Is
Tapas.
it T-A-P-A-S? Yeah, I think it's T-A-P-A-S.
Okay, T-A-P-A-S. And get on there and search for Quarterly Stories. Add that to your library, subscribe to it, and that's the most helpful thing that you can do with him. And then with my stuff, I have just launched that poster. And so if you want a big poster of my new nonsense mashup characters, you can grab that. It's a 18 by 24. Should look really nice. And if that doesn't work, because I still haven't ironed out the kinks, just message me and I'll make sure it works and we'll figure it out. And you can go ahead.
I have one thing I wanted to throw in because it was just dawning on me. Like I love our community and stuff, and we didn't ask our listeners and stuff, but I would like to hear how you guys deal with pressure. Like, do you have tricks? Do you have like your own little version of like microtasking or like back planning or anything like that like you've found really useful? Like what kind of gets you through the crazy pressure? Let us know in the chats and or in the comments section, because we want to hear from you guys. Like, and it always makes our content more interesting. We'll read some of them on the show too if you guys do. So yeah, sorry,
absolutely.
Just wanted to throw that in there.
No, that's okay. Yeah. So you can check out Scott at circworks.com, Josh at quarterlystories.com, and me at corykerr.com. And we will catch you guys either in an hour or so or on Monday.